Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom, and in this video we're going to look at, I wouldn't say it's the last book in the Princess Diaries, it's the first book in the adult series. So I don't know if she's going to continue this, there's probably interest, but this book takes place 6 years after Forever Princess, or Princess Forever, I think. The last official book in the teen series. And yes, it was published 6 years later either, as well. And this is a book that is, particularly in libraries, in the adult romance section. Though there's not entirely a bunch of romance in this book. There's no tension between Mia and Michael at all. They get married, they get engaged, they get married. That's not the chaos in this book. Nothing goes on with them. There were once in all of Mia's insane diaries of her previous books, there is absolutely no boyfriend issues at all, besides the insanity of the rest of her life. And her trying to convince him that no, it's not a good idea for them to get married because her life is insane, and him like, just be quiet and accept this already. So the chaos involves a whole bunch of other things. So since we last saw Mia as she had at her basically graduation, where she's back with Michael and deciding to go to Sarah and Lawrence, it's been 6 years. She's graduated from college. She's opened up a teen center in the name of her stepfather because he died of a heart attack the year before. Yeah, Meg Cabot wanted to make her mother single again. So let's get rid of the stepfather. So he dies of a heart attack, conveniently. And she basically, Mia's opened up a center to help teens kind of with homework kind of thing. That's being run by two of her friends who happen to be lesbians and a couple. So, back from high school. Yes, all of her friends, she briefly mentions people she knew in college, but all of her friends, and she admits this, are still from high school. Lana's gotten a Miss degree. She's gotten married. And the only real thing you hear about her, besides whining, is she begs me to help her write an essay for her baby to go in a beauty pageant, which Mia does kind of grudgingly because she thinks it's crazy. I agree. Mia is in fact correct. Beauty pageants for young children are insane. Now, moving on. And then she mentions Lana's friend as well, who again, they got the Mrs. degrees, so they went and married other people. Fancy people in New York. They don't really get mentioned all that much. The main people who she's texting with, which is really one of the ways Mia is communicating with her friends in this book, is through texting. Let's see. If I remember correctly, one of them was working for Vera Wang. Two of them are obviously working for Mia. One of them is in the one who had the bodyguard is in medical school, and Lily's studying for the bar exam. And apparently Lily's boyfriend, Kenny, Mia's ex-boyfriend, also who had gone to Columbia with Lily, they broke up when Kenny went crazy, besides, blowing up the science lab in prior years. Apparently he built a yurt in the middle of campus and refused to go to classes anymore. And that's all you hear about Kenny. And Boris. Boris plays a little bit more of a role in this book. You don't actually see him. He's mentioned quite a bit. His girlfriend, the law student, has broken up with him because there's some sort of scandal. Because Boris decided to put down his violin, pick up an electric guitar, and become a pop star by the name of Boris P. So he's a major pop star, which is just kind of funny considering all the previous books in this is complaining about Boris and locking him in the closet because he's playing classical music on his violin and driving everybody crazy. Now he's a big name pop star, and he is in fact still friends with Michael. And there was a huge scandal where he may or may not have been making out with another girl, so his girlfriend kind of broke up with him. I think they get back together at the end of this. I could be wrong. They do get back together. And I'm reading these now, and I've decided to add them to this, is a spin-off series. And we will get to that because the entire point of that spin-off series is part of the chaos of this book. So this book starts with her father getting arrested for drag racing, and he's trying to run for re-election for parliament and losing to a guy by the name of Ivan. who's some sort of count and distantly related. Because of course he is. I think he's Italian. It could be, or Spanish, something like that. I think he's Italian. Could be wrong. But he's never actually, he's mentioned. He's not a character. He's just evil force that's brought up. So Dad's got issues. Her father's very depressed and very alcoholic in this book for various reasons, because he's kind of miserable. So that's how it starts. And she's hiding essentially in the Genovian consulate because there are protesters. The other reason they're mad at her is because there's trouble in the Middle East, as there always is, and they're getting refugees. And Mia wants to help the refugees, and the country is ticked off. And Ivan is working on wanting to get rid of them and bring in massive amounts of cruise ships and dredge up the harbor and turn Genovia into a rich boy's playland, essentially. So that's what they're fighting against. Sorry, I have a cat in my lap. Kendra. If you've seen my previous videos, sometimes she shows up. Moving on. So that's where that is the evil specter in the background of this, is they're fighting to not have him take over and destroy their country. And the protesters are pissed off because the economy sucks. This book takes place in 2015. So yeah, the economy's not fantastic. And there's kind of in a recession because it happens. And Genovia is not giving as many of the tourist money as they would like. And then they're dealing with refugees, so they're pissed off at me, and they're pissed off at her dad, and very interested in all these cruise ships because they want more money. And they don't want refugees because, of course they don't. It's Europe. They don't really like refugees all that much. So that's where we start. So Mia's like, I'm stuck. She's about to turn 26. She can't go into work. And she's slightly miserable. She's called the doctor because her eye is twitching. Probably is. Not imagining she's under a lot of stress. He tells her, take some urine tests, take some blood tests. I'll get back to you. I know I don't see anything. Maybe you should journal. So that's how she gets back to journaling. Though you also see her doing a lot of texting in here, which she's talking to her friends and talking about Michael. So it's far less teenage whiny than, I hate to say it, the rest of the book series. This is my favorite. I like this book. I actually like the spin-off series. But yes, we will get there. Daddy has some other issues. So that's how we begin. So she's stuck here. Essentially, what ends up happening shortly thereafter that, besides various arguing with her grandmother and finding out Grandma bought a poodle because Rommel is still alive. Yes, the old deranged poodle. And her grandmother's never got him fixed, so yes, he's humping everything. So Grandma gets him a girlfriend. She gets him a young puppy poodle by the name of Snowflake. And Mia's like, I meant you to get him fixed, not add this other dog. I think it's a Pomeranian. It's a little white fluff ball. So that's been added. Yes, Rommel. And yes, this little white fluff ball has a part in this story. That's why I bring it up. So Michael ends up, of course, they're also bugging Mia because she's not engaged yet. Her and Michael have been together since she graduated right around the time she turned 18. So, and now she's 26. And he's running a giant corporation. He's a millionaire now. So, and they're going from robotic arms to robotic prosthetics, which is kind of what they're doing at the moment. So he's still growing his business, and he's highly intelligent. So, obviously, because he's Michael. So eventually what he does is he takes her away. He sends a message to her. It's like, meet me downstairs. One of the people at the consulate has packed her bags, and don't bring your laptop. Where we're going doesn't have internet. So she's eventually dragged. Basically, he takes her to a private island in like the Bahamas or something in the Caribbean down there where there is no internet. They can't deal with any of the drama. She also has a stalker. This time, obviously, it's not Lily, because Lily likes her. She's eventually going to be her sister-in-law. She knows this. So it is somebody else, and that is revealed. You can probably guess who that is. You know this character. and why on earth he would be highly pissed off that Mia's not with him anymore. So again, I'll bring that up later. Michael proposes. Why they're on vacation, he does a whole elaborate thing, very private. Again, on a private island. Mia relaxes, obviously. He knows what he's doing. It's like, you need a vacation, like now. So they get away from all the news, all the paparazzi, all the protesters, all everything, all the internet. And he proposes, and they have a wonderful weekend. And then they come back, and Grandmere announces it to the world, including Miss obviously not knowing everything because she has no idea. They describe the ring, and she's like, no, it's not a sapphire surrounded by diamonds. I believe it's an engineered diamond, so there's no ethical issues. Yes, that is brought up, that there's no ethical issues because it's grown in a lab. And it's not fake, because it's not a cubic zirconium. It is an actual diamond grown in a lab. So, Grandma announces it. Mia goes because they weren't able to tell their parents in person, which, they intended to literally right after they get home. Within hours. Or maybe, more than the last 24 hours, because Michael's going off when she sees it's probably, I think, the next morning. Like, they get home, the next morning, Grandma has announced it in the newspapers, slightly wrong, and is announcing they're going to have this July wedding. So Mia's on her way. She's trying to message Michael, but he's off giving a speech, or at least he's on his way giving a speech, and to go yell at. She's off trying to go yell at Grandma. She gets to Grandmare's, and she tries to tell her off, and Grandma there. We have other problems. Yeah, now here's the other big bombshell that's dropped on their head, and why her grandma put this in the newspaper to hide another issue. So, when bailing her father out using his own money, Grandmere noticed his bank book, and he's sending money off to New Jersey. So she has the Royal Genovian Guard research this. Turns out right around the time he was telling Mia that she's a princess, his other little illegitimate daughter was being born. So he had an affair before. He was apparently completely sterile with a pilot of a jet air, not private jets, who was African American. So she gave birth to a little girl by the name of Olivia Grace Mignonette Clarice Harrison. Yeah. Who, unfortunately, the mother died. Now, the mother didn't want Olivia to have anything to do with the royal anything. So she didn't tell her who her father was. She wanted to have her live a normal life. So while her father was obviously paying, he took responsibility. He was paying a good chunk of money to take care of his child, and he wrote to her once a month. Her mother had died when she was like 1 or 2. She was still a baby. I don't think it specifies exactly when Mom dies. Olivia Grace is living with her aunt and her uncle, who they routinely call a step-uncle, and Grandmere calls a ginger. Yeah, he's a redheaded white guy, who has 2 children from a previous marriage by the name of Sarah and Justin. And then Olivia Grace lives with them. So what basically Grandmere reveals all of this to Mia, because this is what they find out. And the fact that he owns a construction company. And yeah, there's some sketchy stuff going on there. So Grandmere essentially convinces her, no, you don't need to go see her immediately. You don't need to confront your father right now because he's downstairs getting drunk with Michael. Michael does not get that drunk. But yeah, Dad's kind of freaked out. Remember, this is shortly after he's been arrested. So it's like, all of this is happening very, very quickly. Has a tendency in these books. Like hat in lap. Okay. So she doesn't confront her father. Her grandmother's like, this is why I put this in the newspaper. We're trying to hide this because Ivan would love this. It would be a huge thing. It's like he has an illegitimate black love child that he's hidden. So Mia doesn't confront her father. They start going on planning the wedding and the chaos that is the wedding. And when she contacts, of course, her friends, particularly Lily. And Lily's like, let me look this up. So Lily decides to do some digging, because of course she does, despite the fact that she's supposedly highly busy studying for the bar exam, which, yes, will happen this is in May. Yes, the bar exam would happen in July. Yes, that is normal. I'm married to a lawyer. He's aware of the bar exams in the US pretty much all happen right around the same time. They do them twice a year. July is one of them. So, so Lily's doing that, but Lily goes into research mode. So despite Mia wanting to wear a Vera Wang, of course they can't do that. They have to go with her Sebastian, I think that's the pronunciation, of her cousin, who's Genovian, in designing the gown. So she's basically in the salon trying on gowns, trying to figure things out with her mother, her grandmother, all of her friends. Lily is not there. Lily is late. Lily shows up when Mia's in the dressing room, comes in because she's Lily and she doesn't care. And again, they've been friends for a long time, except for, their last 2 years in high school. And Mia's having existential crisis. It's like, everybody's telling me different things and what to wear. And Lily's like, just wear a ball gown. You like the ball gown. You're a princess. Just wear the princess ball gown and stop whining. And this dress looks fine. And we have bigger problems. So she hands her this entire dossier on what's going on with Olivia Grace. So it looks suspicious that Uncle is embezzling the money they're sending. Mia's father is sending to take care of Olivia Grace into his business. The other big problem that causes Mia to go running off to her sister is her step family is planning on moving to a made-up Middle Eastern country that essentially is somewhere like Saudi Arabia. So, yeah, and where women have just been banned from doing any sort of water sports. They're building a giant mall there. And then Olivia Grace is going to be sent to boarding school in possible foreign country where women have no rights. And Mia is still a major feminist. So, Mia gets out of the dress and goes to rescue her sister because she's not entirely thinking straight. So they get in the limo because Grandma somehow takes away her car and forces her to use the big fancy limo with all the trimmings and flags and all sorts of things. Because of course we must be suspicious. Or, not suspicious, wrong word here, ostentatious and visual. So they drive all the way to New Jersey to the aunt's home. At first, the aunt doesn't want to let her in, doesn't want to acknowledge her, slams Mia's foot in the door. Lars gets pissed off because, again, this woman may or may not be assaulting the future ruler of Genovia, and he's a bodyguard, and yes, Lars is still there. So eventually she lets her in. Lily has typed up a paper, knowing Mia, to, like, you're going to let us take her out of school, and you're not going to say anything to the bloody press. So that happens, and they get back in the car, and on their way to the school, her friends happen to mention, because one of them asked to go to the bathroom, and looked into Olivia Grace's bedroom, which had no television, no technology, no nothing, really, as opposed to her uncle's kids, which had televisions and were stocked out with a bunch of other stuff. It looked very stark. So it's kind of obvious that they're not treating Olivia Grace equally to his children. They don't love her. So that's kind of what the impression is that they're getting. So they show up just as Olivia Grace is being beaten up by what it turns out to be the daughter of her uncle's attorney, who is a personal injury lawyer. Yeah, we'll get to the legal weird things going on in this. And the only reason I bring these up is because, again, I'm a wife of an attorney. So I happened to notice this weird stuff, so it would pop into my mind. So apparently they rescue Olivia Grace, get her into, it's like, look, we can take her away from school. She's going to a private school, or at least a charter school, or any school with uniforms. So they take her into the limo, and she wants to go see her dad. So they head back to New York. And they get back to the penthouse, during which Mia doesn't quite realize, because she didn't read the entire dossier, that while speaking to her grandmère in French, Olivia Grace understands most of what she says. The only issue is, of course, they're speaking really fast, because both Mia's took French in school, and again, she lived in France during her summer and winter breaks periodically throughout her entire life. So she speaks French fluently. And Olivia Grace is taking French in school. So why on earth they would be doing it in middle school or the 6th grade, which is what grade she's in, I don't know, but maybe it's a back east thing. Out west, we don't take foreign languages until high school, or maybe they do it now. Don't know. Moving on. So Olivia Grace kind of understands that her aunt and uncle might be doing something shady, particularly since, they own 2 Ferraris, and their business is doing well, but not that well. So, yeah, it's kind of pretty obvious that they're embezzling the child payments for themselves. And no, there is no law in the land that's going to say the excuse of, well, we bought 2 Ferraris for the child. No. That wouldn't work. So yes, it's very obvious that they're obviously funneling money into the business rather than, saving it to be used for the child. Or, standard things like rent, which is essentially what Mia's father did. He paid for her to go to school and mostly rent on their apartment and stuff that they needed, because Mia's mother was flighty. She's still slightly flighty. You don't see a lot of Helen Thermopolis in this. Moving on. So they get back to the penthouse. Olivia Grace meets Dad. Olivia Grace loves Dad. Her father apologizes. And I'm going to backtrack. Prior to the whole wedding, the wedding dress thing, Mia's father, wants to do a prenup, and Mia says no and tells his assistant she wants to talk to her father about Olivia Grace. Dad shows up half drunk, I think, in really bad shape at her door. And they have a good long heart-to-heart, and it's very obvious that Dad is very, very miserable. He hasn't eaten. He doesn't quite want to do with his life. He's very, very sorry. He wanted Olivia Grace to come live with him. He loves his daughter, both of them. This was not what he wanted, but her mother didn't want her part of the royal world at all, and she made the aunt the guardian rather than turning it over to her father. So essentially he feels very, very guilty, and that's why he never told Lily or told Mia about it, because he felt horrible about it. And so Mia kind of gives him advice. It's like, you need to stop following what everybody else is telling you, like your mother. Try to go off the map, I believe is what she tells him. And he asks she's like, can I get you something to eat? He's like, I keep seeing these weird cheesy puffs advertised. I'd like some of those. And so she orders a bunch of junk food for her father, who apparently hasn't eaten in a while. She lets her Michael know. He's like, you should probably not come over. Dad's passed out on my couch. So I feel like having to take care of Dad. He's gone by the morning, and wrote her that he's kind of seeming to the world looks better in the light of day kind of thing, and we shouldn't be bringing up your sister. And of course Lily goes, Mia goes herring off to rescue her, and obviously Dad finds out. Dad loves his daughter, both of them, but Olivia Grace obviously needs him a little bit more. So they have a lot of talking. Olivia Grace actually gets along with Grandmère and loves this little fluffy poodle. She's literally in love with this dog. She likes poodles. She can't have pets because her aunt is one of those women who has white carpeting, like wall-to-wall white carpeting and fancy white sofas, and is someone who doesn't like mess of any kind. And despite nobody in their household having any sort of gluten allergy or anything to do with gluten, she thinks gluten will make you fat. So she's one of those people. It's like gluten will make you fat. Everything has to be perfect and clean. And obviously, having her niece around who likes to draw animals and wants to be a wildlife illustrator is not something she particularly likes. Not to mention, what she does like is the bloody money. So, moving on. So, you have a lot of relationships going on with Olivia Grace. She loves her. She wants to go live with her father. And so she gets basically, and she loves grandmother. For some reason, she gets along with Mia's grandmother, who Mia cannot stand throughout the entire previous book series. So, and her grandmother likes the new granddaughter. She's very happy to see her. So, this is a member of their family. They're very accepting of her. And that's a big theme with the rest of the story is of Olivia Grace, which is you have 4 other books where you have a spin-off series of the notebooks of a middle school princess, which I am in the process of reading. And yes, I'm going to review them because they're very interesting. You get a different viewpoint of some of these events from Olivia Grace's point of view. Because shortly after this, Mia leaves and goes home with Michael. Now, privately before this, now Mia slightly knows this, her grandmother's hired a PR firm to make things go away. Unfortunately, it's JP's uncle's PR firm. And JP, the previous boyfriend, he's down on his luck. He can't get anything done. His writing kind of sucks. Eventually, he emails Mia a teen dystopian novel, which she doesn't read. She passes on to a friend because she doesn't want to deal with this. She has bigger problems than dealing with her ex-crazy boyfriend, which unfortunately is there when this whole Olivia Grace thing happens and Michael gets pissed off and doesn't know and sees him and hits him. Yep, and then of course they're no longer their PR firm. The PR firm is suing them because, again, the future Prince of Genovia damaged one of their technical employees. Mind you, he deserved it. Yeah, it turns out, I think Lily mentions this later, he's the stalker. He's the one who's been writing horrible things about Mia for a while because, again, he's pissed off. He's pissed off with her. The only reason he dated her when they were in high school was because he wanted the notoriety. He wanted to launch off her celebrity for his own doings and his own life because he's not actually all that good at writing and anything. So Michael gets pissed off, obviously, and hits him. Mind you, of course, Michael has every other reason to hit him because, he tried to have a movie based on Mia and his relation, or Mia and JP's relationship, some of the embarrassing moments in that relationship made into a film. And, he also broke up with Michael's sister in order to get with Mia and got between Mia and him right before he went to Japan. So, yeah, he has lots and lots of reason to hate JP. So that happens. Michael then takes Mia home. Her foot is still throbbing the next morning. He's still with her. He insists they go to the doctor. And here comes the other thing, and this is probably one of my favorite parts of this book because it's absolutely hilarious. Mia's pregnant. And she's like, I can't be pregnant. I take birth control, like, religiously. I know it's one of those that, and this is realistic, that you only have your period once every 4 months. And she's like, I make sure I take it at the right time. The doctor is like, 1, yes, we're very sure. We have, like, blood and urine to samples that tell us, yeah, you're very, very pregnant. 2, there's a failure rate with those things, particularly if you don't take them exactly as prescribed. And, issues happen when you're going through time zones, which again is true. Birth control can, in fact, fail, and does. It's not one of those, I've read a lot of romance novels where she gets a stomach bug and all of a sudden she's pregnant. No, Mia, it took her a while. She's only about 8 weeks. And yeah, if she's going between New York and Genovia, where there's probably close to 6 hours time difference, and she's 26 and having a lot of sex, unprotected sex with her boyfriend, yeah, it would happen. And he kind of goes to explain this, where she proceeds to freak out that she's had schnapps and all sorts of junk food, and he's like, you're fine. Just breathe. My generation, the doctor's like, my mother's generation drank and smoked. Don't do this, but you're fine. You're about 8 weeks, maybe 10 weeks, depending on when your period was. And Michael actually knows this. He's like, yeah, you've had the symptoms and you haven't had your period since December. She's like, how do you know that? It's like, I know. Again, they've been in a relationship for many years. My husband knows this. It's a completely normal thing. Very close relationships, to understand the husband's menstrual cycle because they do pay attention. So it's like, yes. And then they have an ultrasound to confirm it. And before this, she's like, if I'm pregnant with twins, I'll kill you. And yeah, she's pregnant with twins. So she's having 2 babies and she freaks out. I mean, notably, you would. You're 26 years old. Your father, who, yes, he was in court. Mentally, we cleaned that up. He was given a fine. That was what was going on with Mia, was hijacking her little sister from New Jersey. Dad is able to get home quickly from them, because again, private jet. So, that was cleared up. But again, she just found out she's a sister. She has a little sister. She's getting married. Chaos is kind of ensuing. They go back to protect Olivia Grace, who's gotten a bit of, not a major makeover just because she looks fine the way she is, but she's gotten cleaned up. Unfortunately, her aunt and uncle have showed up pissed off and drag her back along with their personal injury attorney. Again, we'll get to some of the weird stuff. I enjoy this book, but there's also some weird stuff going on. So they take her back. Olivia Grace does not want to go back. She's very upset. Her father's not happy, but he's like, we will get you back, essentially. His lawyers are going to work overtime. So, and then he drops the ball that he's going out to dinner with Mia's mother. And they're going to some weird vegetarian restaurant. Grandmother freaks out. He's now the thing with Ivan's made to go away because again the Royal Genevan Guard is digging into things. They find he inherited from his grandfather a whole bunch of like major stocks in the biggest cruise ship company, which he didn't disclose, which is illegal because he didn't disclose his business interests, and thus they basically say, we can make this public and you can go to jail or you can back out of the race, which he does. And Olivia Grace actually helps them out with the refugee crisis. She overhears some of this besides the whole embezzling thing. And she says, why don't you have him donate cruise ships for the refugees? Which they do. Because then, of course, we're back to this thing. Ivan's gone. They find this out. It's like he's backed off. And his father's like, good. I backed out too. And her grandmother goes nuts. She's like, what? Yeah. He's like, I'm going to try to get Mia's mother back. And if that means stepping out of the race and relinquishing my throne, and basically he's going to turn it over to Mia, that's what I'm going to do. And Grandma goes bonkers. And she's like, what the heck are you going to do? And he's like, I'm going to live. Oh, and now I have more cats coming in my door because I didn't close it. Oops. Go away, hobby. I'm going to move on because I don't want to stop filming this. So, that's the situation. There is a large black cat meowing at me here. I will interrupt this video to show a large black cat. Come here, Obsidian. This is a large black cat. This is Obsidian. We call him Obby. He's annoying, as is evidenced by the licking. Oh, the big football. All right, down, irritating panther. Okay, back to the book review after we were interrupted by cat, because I didn't close the door all the way. Obsidian, shoo. Okay, so Grandma is freaked out. Her father leaves. Grandma blames it on Mia. Mia's like, yeah, well, I'm going to be fine taking over the throne and being the mother of 2 twins. And she shows her the sonogram, and Grandma's kind of speechless. Then Mia and Michael leave. The next day after, Mia has breakfast, throws up breakfast, has another thing of breakfast, Mia's parents show up together. Obsidian. This is normally why I keep that door closed, because cats are irritating. Obsidian's under the age of 1. As of this shooting, this is in November of 21. Moving on. So, let's see, Dad and Mom show up at the apartment with Mia and Michael. They tell them they're having twins, and Mia's parents announce they're getting married and moving to Genovia with Rocky, which is obviously Hi Abby, Mia's half brother. So hi Abby. So he's a lover cat. Moving on here. So everybody's happy, and then it jumps to Mia and her father in the limo going to pick up Olivia Grace. Essentially, Mia's not quite sure. It's either they paid a bunch of money or they threatened them with prison, but they're getting Olivia Grace back. So they show up at the aunt's and uncle's house. He is routinely referred to as the step uncle here. And they're not happy because, again, if Olivia Grace chooses to go with her father, they don't get any money anymore. So, which they're misusing it anyway. They try to be nice. The stepfather is not happy at all. And by the way, in the, as far as I can tell, in the 3 books I've read of the Little Sisters books, her aunt and uncle are not mentioned at all after the first book. So, yeah. But moving on. So they show up. Olivia Grace eventually shows up all bloody. She pretty much got hit in the nose by Annabelle, who is, again, the lawyer's daughter. And Mia's pissed off. Both Mia's reaction and her father's reaction is to jump up and run and check on Olivia. It's like, what the heck happened? Where are the royal and Genovian guard? They were supposed to be watching you. Apparently the father threatened to sue them if they did anything. Again, he's a personal injury attorney, so we'll get to that. Abby, you're annoying. Moving on here. Her aunt's reaction is to try to deal with the coffee stain that Mia accidentally spilled on the floor when she jumped up seeing her sister covered in blood. So then Mia's like, okay, we're leaving. It's very obvious that by your reaction and the fact that your husband here thinks it's girls being girls, and that his lawyer was doing a good thing, threatened to sue the school when his daughter tried to break the nose of his niece. And yes, it's all over the news, and I think he's kind of embarrassed when he finds out there's pictures everywhere and his son and daughter didn't really do anything because they were both present. But Mia's it's like, we're going upstairs and getting Olivia Grace's things. Her aunt tries to stop them and says, like, do you want to be grow up to be a spoiled princess? Your mother wanted you to grow up to be a normal person, a common people. Yeah, she uses the word common people, like us. And her aunt, and basically Olivia says, no, I don't want to be a spoiled person. And then she looks at her, it's like, I'm still going with them. Do you know why? Essentially because these people love me. When I walked in the door, you were more concerned about the stain on your white carpet than what happened to me. These people love me. You don't, essentially. And then essentially it jumps to, and a lot of this is being told from the past, from Mia, why she's sitting in the ER, why her sister, they're looking to see if she needs her nose x-rayed at the hospital. So, which she doesn't, and then they're going home, and then apparently planning to fly to Genovia immediately. I don't know how passports work. I suppose she's the daughter of the prince. They're going to a country, he's in charge. So it doesn't particularly matter. Abby, leave my hair ties alone, you annoying panther. Is again why normally I close that door. Moving on. So it jumps to the royal wedding, and she's pretty much said, I married him. She quotes Jane Eyre. She admits she quotes Jane Eyre in this. And they got married. They had a wonderful wedding. Her sister seems happy. And that's essentially very much the end of this story. Some of the other things interesting happened. Mia does make reference to her old journals because she goes looking for them when she finds out, did I ever have any inkling that my father had a love child? Like, no. And she's like, oh dear God, what was wrong with me? It's like, I'm complaining about my lack of breasts. I'm complaining about boys. Essentially, it would be normal if as an adult, like you ever wrote in a journal, it's like you're looking back to it as an adult, it's like, what is wrong with me? You're a teenager. That's what's wrong with you. You're a teenager. So, but it is kind of funny. Now, on to my kind of pet peeves of this, and this is, first one's going to show up a lot more in the the spin-off series, has to do with Rocky. One, he's barely mentioned except for he's having trouble in school because he talked about farting. He's said to be 9 in this book, which is wrong. He should be 11, considering when he was born, which would have been just a year after Olivia Grace, and she's 12. Because remember, Mia's parents got married in October of when she was 14 on Halloween, when her mother was already pregnant. And Rocky's birthday is in June of that year, so the math got screwed up. It's mentioned more in the other books. Abby, you're an annoying large black animal. Now on to kind of the weird, interesting legal stuff. Why on earth a guy owning a construction company needs a personal injury attorney, since he's the owner and he shouldn't be doing hard labor anymore? Not to mention, why would a personal injury attorney be threatening to sue a country? Yeah, he doesn't really have the skills to do it, nor should he technically be involved in family law. Because again, he's a personal injury attorney, so he would know nothing about custody stuff at all. It's a completely different branch of law, so unless he's doing a whole bunch of stuff besides personal injury or business law, even that and family law are very, very different. Not to mention, a personal injury attorney who's probably, well, it sounds like the guy's very, very stupid, would not be suing another country for, protecting their charge from his daughter assaulting them. So yes, that was just kind of funny. Not to mention, Abby, do not bite me, annoying cat. But Mia mentions at the end of the book that once Lily passes the bar, she might be able to be made Attorney General. No, then there would be no reason for Lily to pass the bar exam. The bar exam just allows Lily to practice law in the state of New York, and really nowhere else, I believe. Actually, maybe. It depends on the state. It varies. But again, international law would be very, very different. I don't know how that would work in fictional Genovia, but again, yeah, it would be very, very weird. Abby, leave my mic alone. But otherwise, this is a very fun book. This is my favorite of the book series. I am enjoying the stories of Olivia Grace. You get to see the whole scenes of once her involvement and what's going on with her in the second book. So it's a little bit different, but you get to see more details of what's going on with her. And then in those books is where you get the full-on royal wedding and what happens there. So, and you get to see a little bit more of Rocky, and you don't really see that much of Mia. You see a lot of Grandmere, but they're fun, and I am planning on reviewing them because they're very, very entertaining. I'm hoping there's going to be more of these, because I really did enjoy this book. They're far less whiny than the teenage books, which are, again, that's the demographic. Those were teen novels with the worries of a teenage girl. This is an adult novel. Mia's 26. She's grown up. She has far more important things to worry about than boys and school and various other things, considering she's completely done with school. She's got the boy problem dealt with. Now she has to deal with daddy issues, country issues, and freaking out that she's pregnant with twins, which again is perfectly normal. And I believe Meg Cabot handles the pill didn't work better than girl gets sick, has some sort of stomach bug, and her birth control didn't necessarily work. No, Mia's not. The birth control does fail, and when you're flying around different time zones, even if you are still taking it, and particularly when you have pills like that, when you're taking them for an extended period of time, it is possible. It's not likely, because birth control can, depending on how long she's been on it, it's iffy, but it's possible. So it's better than I've seen before when it comes to things handling. And again, Mia's also going between time zones, particularly I think it's about 6 hours. So yeah, and depending on the pill. So it's possible. It's not likely, but it's possible. So that is really the end of this review, despite, you know, the cats interrupting, and both of them, both Abby, who's not the youngest in our household, that'd be Jasper. One of these days I'll show him. He's gotten larger and fluffier and white. But I really do love this book. It's a great kind of, not necessarily ending, but addition to the Princess Diaries. And as an adult, I find it more appealing than, say, the previous books in the series. And I am actually enjoying, again, the 4 little books of the Olivia Grace's story, because they're a little bit more fun. So, and Olivia Grace likes herself a lot more than Mia did. So she's a heck of a lot more confident, though she has her own issues, and it's kind of fun. So if you like this review, be sure to like and subscribe. Check out what I've got. Did a whole bunch of princess stuff when I was doing this stuff. I actually did a whole bunch of Cinderella stuff, so I've done a whole bunch of princess stuff. I do a wide variety of other things. A lot of children's picture books, a lot of educational stuff, particularly when it comes to my kids' picture books. A lot of educational stuff for older kids, some longer series. I'm periodically covering Tamora Pierce, who, let's see, if I can move the chair at all. There we go. You can see some of her books up there somewhere, along with various other series that I will be covering. Yes, I have Harry Potter there. Yes, I covered him too, begrudgingly. I have an entire series of covering Harry Potter because it's not going to go away. No, I don't recommend buying them because brawling is irritating, but that's not this video. I have an entire video on that. I also do travel stuff, basically kids travel stuff and more education stuff. We're a homeschooling family, so that's where this is coming from. So again, be sure to like and subscribe. Check out what I've got. I have quite a bit available, already filmed and archived there, and I have a whole heck of a lot more planned. So thank you.